That's right, y'all. We back on the scene to pull the lesson out. This is Gaming Looks Good, episode number 12, and we're talking about Assassin's Creed Chronicles China. Now, this is the show where we take one game and we look at it from the lens of diversity. So that can be race, gender, sexuality, all that good stuff we're going to be diving into. So it's not going to be your standard review 5 out of 5 kind of stuff. We're just looking at it from the diversity angle. So I'm Shareef Jackson, broadcasting to y'all live out of Milwaukee. And this week's T-shirt is I love. Whoops, wrong way. I love games. And this sign here is actually the sign from the Isometric podcast, which is a great podcast. And I'll put the site up here. So if you go to isometricshow.com or to relay.fm, it's a gaming podcast, which with a very diverse panel. So we got Steve Lubitz, Brianna Wu, Georgia Dow, and Maddie Myers, and they talk all kind of games and craziness and pandas and crack-a-lackin', all kind of stuff. So definitely check out their show if you want a good gaming podcast to listen to. But let's dive back into Assassin's Creed Chronicles China. So I found this to actually be pretty cool because, as you see on the screen here, you actually have a female protagonist. And this is something that they previously had with Aveline in their Assassin's Creed game for the Vita, but this is the first time that you see it in a console or PC game. Now, this is sort of like, isn't there quote-unquote AAA Assassin's Creed? This is a two-dimensional stealth platformer, but it's still cool to see them getting at some new locales and, new genders. Now, as you see, the next games are in India and Russia, which feature guys, which, would be awesome if we could kind of continue this trend since they've already had 18 billion Assassin's Creed games with guys in it. But still, I'm glad to get, our protagonist here in China. So let's go right into the video and let's start out how they do not let you forget that you are a concubine, which is a recurring theme throughout this game.
You've come far for someone who was merely once a concubine.
So that's literally one of the first lines in the game. So if you don't know, a concubine is, usually someone that, is sort of not married to a guy, but basically is forced to have sexual relations kind of with him and is basically a slave in the time of this game, which is, in ancient China. So they do not let you forget that, and it kind of sucks because in the other games with the male leads, they don't focus as much on their pasts if they had unfortunate things, but in this one it's like, hey, we got a woman character, she's got to be a sex slave. You know what I'm saying? So let's continue a bit on that line.
Take some rest, little sister. Together we will free our land from the Templars and their pawns, Zhang Yong and his tigers. We will rebuild our brotherhood.
So one interesting thing here is, this is her master, and he calls her little sister, right? But then he says, we will rebuild our brotherhood. So right there, I feel like, she's definitely an assassin, and she definitely does some assassin type things in this game. Like, she kicks ass, actually. But she's it's a brotherhood, right? So it's of guys. So is she in the brotherhood? I see the word sister used a lot in this game, and they don't mean like in the familial way. So I think it's an interesting choice of words that they use to kind of separate her out from the true assassins brotherhood that we've seen in other games. Now let's take a look at her being badass.
I am the blade in the shadows. My prey is you, Dae Young. I shall walk into darkness and strike swiftly. No one will stop me in my hunt.
Now, this is why having, female protagonists is so dope. This art is so dope. And, if I had, a young daughter or like a young girl that I knew that was growing up in games and they're asking about people to cosplay or different posters to have on their wall, different figures, this is somebody that I'd be like, yo, check this out because, look at this art here. It's so cool. And, it's a badass, which is kind of why it was a little annoying to like see sort of her being, you know, not in the brotherhood kind of per se, because she is a badass. All right, so the next part is we're going to watch her get in her feelings, which is something that, you know, unfortunately they tend to make female characters, even when they are positive and like badass, they kind of have them kind of retreat into this emotional thing, which tends to affect their you know, actual skills in the game. So let's check out that part of the video.
For his cruel deeds, we call him the demon.
I know, Sifu, but we caused this madness. My desire for revenge did.
I already warned you about those feelings, Shao Jun. I know your quest for vengeance fits with the goals of the Brotherhood, but you cannot put your heart into such endeavors.
So like she's like my desire, and like her master Shifu was like, yo, chill with them feelings. Like it doesn't fit in with the Brotherhood goes, which again means that she's not a part of the Brotherhood, right? So like there's that part of like her clearly being distracted from like the mission, as well as working as an assassin, but not being really welcomed into that Brotherhood. So, you know, I really think it's an interesting kind of positioning. Not sure if that's what Ubi meant to do, but that definitely is the effect, you know, that I think that the player is left with after viewing this. So like the next scene is actually the first other women that you see in the game, because even though like you do play as Shao, and she rocks, but you don't see any other women in the game, and you're stabbing dudes, you're flipping over people, you're doing all kind of stealthy stuff. Let's take a guess at the first kind of women that you see in the game. So let's roll that clip. So those are the first women in the game. There's civilians in the background that you can use as cover. That's it. No women warriors, no other women Templars, no other women with swords or shurikens or all that kind of stuff. They're just background kind of decoration. And this is crazy because if this was a game with a male protagonist and this was the only women in the game, I would be pissed. And I'm still pissed, because just because you have a female protagonist does not mean that you should, you know, follow the same rules of where women should appear in the rest of your game. It leaves that impression that Ubisoft just wanted to check that box off and say, all right, we have Shao here. Everything else can like continue as normal. So that really bothered me. So now I talked a little bit about how, you know, she used to be a concubine. Let's look at the difference between how the male slaves in the game are treated and the women concubines are. So let's go to that clip. So as you see here in the upper left, it says, you know, free the personal slaves, kind of one of three. So that's just a counter, and you go through this level, and maybe there's some slaves, you just go up to them and you free them, and like they say, I'm free, and they leave, right? There's no other mechanic, right? They don't die, they don't do anything like that. They're just there as sort of an optional goal to rescue, which is pretty dope. You know, I have no problem with that. Let's see if they handle the other concubines in the same way.
I was born into captivity, one of many concubines. When the Brotherhood came for us, I saw freedom. I saw a future. Now it is up to me to offer hope for those who see none. When Zhang Yong and Chu Ju are dead, when I have the box, I will deliver that. Now my journey has come full circle. My past has returned to aid my future. My old friend, once a concubine like me, is now Empress, and she's risking her life to help me. She knows where to find Zhang Yong, but I fear she and the concubines are in grave danger. If the Templars suspect they are helping me, they will kill them in the blink of an eye.
Okay, so aside from reminding you for the 5 billionth time that she used to be a concubine, you have an interesting thing that comes up here, which is, number one, she's about to run into this empress who used to be a concubine with her. So I'm like, cool, another female character. She's not a background thing. She's actually somebody that might drive the plot forward. Maybe she's awesome. I mean, she clearly has power as a empress, right? So that got me excited. But the other thing is how they say if they suspect that they're helping you, they will kill them in a blink of an eye. So my thing is, I really hope there's not a mechanic where these concubines can be killed, because I just got off that slave mission, right? There's no killing or anything. Either you free the slaves or you don't, right? So, so I'm excited about, meeting the Empress, but at the same time, worried that they're going to have a mechanic of concubines getting killed. So let's see how it plays out.
No, please. These concubines are in danger.
So right in the upper left side here, this bugged me out. Once you see that first concubine down there, it says tea room concubine alive. So I'm like, oh no, they're going to die. When I showed the previous shot with the personal slaves, there was no alive or dead. Also, the tea room concubine, like, that's just a weird name. Like, they just are obsessed with the word concubine in this game. It's like Assassin's Concubine, Chronicles Concubine. And by the way, I was a concubine. I mean, it's just crazy. I think that it's just handled like they're literally decoration. So let's see how the rest of this plays out.
I need to kill the guards protecting them. Give the girls a chance to get out of here. Please, help the others.
All right, so now it says tea room concubine saved, and then it says main area concubine. It's just like the adjectives that they use are just so bad. Like, it's just so ridiculous. It would be like calling me like podcasting Black Shareef alive. Like, it's just ridiculous. But let's keep going. Okay, so as you see, I set off an alert because I didn't kill this guy in a stealthy manner, even though no one else saw me kill him. But that's a game mechanic thing that's kind of broken. But then you hear the concubine right below me get killed, as she's called she's called the Garden Concubine. And actually, I'll let this play a little bit more so you can see her name. There we go. See, Garden Room Concubine dead, and then like there was like a kind of that a concubine is killed, So yeah, this mechanic is just dumb, and it shows that usually when they put women characters as objects in the game, it's like usually some rescue them or they're killed. Whereas the slaves don't get it. Any of the other people in the game that serve as additional objectives don't have to fall under this mechanic. So once again, Shao is a kick-ass female protagonist, but then you already have, the concubines here, and you have the women only be in the background as the citizens that you can hide in as a stealth mechanic. So, they're really striking out on a lot of points here. So now let's see if the Empress is as awesome as I hoped.
Lin, to lure you here.
Lies. I had no choice.
That's her whole contribution to this game. So you get up to the Empress, and they basically said, "Yo, we used her to lure you here. Like, the Empress wasn't really calling you; it was me all along." That's a dude in the background there, and then she's like, "Lies, all of them. That's it. You don't hear from her. You don't interact with her." So this Empress, who I thought would be a badass, would have power, just ends up being very powerless. Now, maybe Ubi is making some huge statement about how even when women got in power at this time, that they were still ultimately puppet strings from other men, because it says ancient China. But I doubt it. I really think that they just didn't think that they needed to develop other characters because they had Shao, and she's enough. That's enough to placate all those people talking about that we're not diverse. So yeah, I was really disappointed by this. So now let's go a bit as to how they talk about the Mongolians. So in this era of China. This is when China, built the Great Wall to defend against the Mongolian attacks into their empire. So let's see how they talk about that.
Now you plan to let Altan Khan and his Mongolians through the Great Wall. Madness. You'd let those barbarians invade our home rather than lose your grip on power.
So, she's like, yo, these are barbarians, and like, you'll let these damn Mongolians come through. So clearly, they set her up as, a little complex, which is good. Until this point, instead of being a badass murdering machine, she seemed to be doing what was right, right? She was avenging the fact that, she was killing like these Templars and they had her as a concubine and it was all revenge. But now, like, she shows that she is a product of her time in terms of being absolutely racist towards these barbarian Mongols, right? So I like that they add that layer onto her, right? Like she's not sort of the perfect person, right? She also has these these things about being a little racist there. Now let's look at the battle scene with the Mongolians, which I think is actually pretty dope. Let's check that out. Pretty dope stuff, right? Unfortunately, that's not how the whole game is. Actually, the game is a little boring, but that scene right there was really dope. So I just wanted to show you guys that because it is awesome, and if you don't get this game, just watch that scene over and over again. It's one of the best parts in the game when you're actually not doing stealth. So also, if you notice there, another reason is in that clip and in other clips, they actually had people speaking in a Chinese dialect. I don't know which one, but and it was all subtitled, right? So they don't have a bunch of people in ancient China speaking English, except for you, of course, which is kind of ridiculous. But I like that the normal guards, actually speak in that dialect. It really immerses you in the world, and I do think that if you do choose to take on a culture that is different from your own, that you do respect them enough to use that language, right? Even if you have to subtitle it, right? As the player, it should be up to you to learn what they're saying by reading those subtitles and really listening, and getting a sense of that dialect because this is how people sounded. So one other weird thing, so I always like to end with something weird or like something funny, is that this game when it first shipped, uh, I played it on the PC with the mouse and the keyboard, but all the prompts in the game were for the controller. And when I plugged in the controller didn't work. So you had scenes like that, right? Where I'm on my keyboard, I don't know what left button is. I don't know what the R stick is because I'm on a keyboard. And there's nowhere in the game, even if you go to the options screen, that shows you what maps to what. So the only way to know would be to go into the INI file, which is, just a file in the folder that the game installs in, and look there, or Google it. So I had to Google how to control this like damn game. So for sections like this, which are the earlier kind of tutorial sections, I was lost. I'm just fumbling around. So I'm just like, all right, right stick. I don't know what right button is. I pressed the wrong button there. And there, I finally got it. So it was a real struggle. But here, as you see, this is later after they issued a patch and they finally fixed it. So now I could do fancier moves like this. Right. So I whistled and he looked up, then I ran directly in his face, slid, cut him, done. All right, so thank y'all for watching. This is Game Looks Good, episode 12, Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, or as I call it, Assassin's Concubine. Peace, y'all.
Back to the lab.